In this video, I'm going to show you how you should think during a chess game and how this thought process will help you improve your chess. So let's just go ahead and find an opponent. I have my speedrun account here, and we're at the 1400 level on this account. So this is probably where the majority of people start to get stuck and have a hard time improving. All right, we have the black pieces, and my opponent goes e4. So around this level, you kind of need to know the basics, which are control the center, etc. We play c6 to control the center. We play the Carl Khan. Now, you don't have to play the Carl Khan. You can play whatever opening it is of your choice, but you need to follow basic opening principles, which is fight for the center, develop your pieces, and then castle. So my opponent plays d4. What does this do? I mean, it's just controlling the center. They put two pawns in the center. If you can do that, it's usually a good move. Now we're going to go ahead and play d5. We want to control the center as well, and my opponent decides to take. So we don't really have much of an option here. We're probably just going to take back, right? Now, okay, my opponent's playing c4, and what does this do? It's an immediate attack on my center. What opened up? This opened up. So this check in the future might be a problem. But first, let's develop our pieces, controlling the center. My opponent decides to take. Now we could take with the queen or the knight. If we take with the knight and they develop their knight, then we can probably just develop our knight. Because if they take, then we can just capture back. We're not really too worried. So let's go ahead and take the pawn back. And now what white is left with is called an isolated pawn. And whenever you have an isolated pawn, what you want to do is blockade it, stop it from being able to push itself and trade it off. And then you want to apply pressure to the isolated pawn. So my opponent develops their piece, attacking my knight. The knight is defended sufficiently. Let's just continue developing. They just decide to trade it off. Okay. So we can only take back with one piece. So queen takes can be automatic, but let's look further into the position. What is happening? Well, they're trading their pieces, and I just mentioned previously that this isolated pawn, we want to blockade and then apply pressure. Now, typically, if you go into this endgame as white, you're probably going to be a little bit worse because you have the weakness. Black has a very nice, solid foundation of pawns. So, we're happy to see this. Let's go ahead and capture the knight. And it's very good to notice that after queen takes, there's no knight here. Typically, you want to leave the queen to develop like last, but there's no real way for the white pieces to take advantage of the queen being out early. So they're developing and defending. This is good. Now what we want to do is we want to apply pressure to this piece. How do we do that? Well, g6 comes to mind, trying to put the bishop on this diagonal. And as you get more familiar in certain openings, you'll come up with these kind of plans where you realize that you don't really need to push the e-pawn. You can just play g6, bishop g7, and castle. Now, if white ever goes here, I mean, is that an issue? Not at the moment, because we can just take it. Is there any tempo moves on my queen? Not really at the moment. So I think we can continue with our plan of g6. They'll probably develop, and then we'll go bishop g7, and there's an immediate attack on this. So they're going to have to develop. And at that point, maybe we pin the knight, trying to remove a defender of this pawn. So let's go ahead and play g6. We don't want to lose on time, so we're going to have to speed up a little bit, but I want to kind of explain my thought process. There are checks here, but it doesn't do anything. They just help the opponent develop. So you want to avoid checks like this. Sometimes beginners or even intermediate people see checks and they think, oh, I see a check. Let's give a check. But not all checks are good. You always have to be thinking, like, what can my opponent do? So here's the move. We expected this. Let's go ahead and develop the bishop, just as we planned. This doesn't do anything. It's just defending the knight and getting ready to castle. Now we see this move. I believe we can just play bishop g4, the threat of takes, but then they can take like this. And we don't really want that, right? So we could castle. We could also just develop the bishop here anyways. If they were to kick us back, then we would have to take. So maybe it's not the best plan of action. We want to get rooks behind the isolated pawn as well. Okay, I'm seeing that, potential stuff here. Let's put the bishop on this diagonal. It's a nice diagonal for the bishop. And we're just developing our piece. We have the bishop pair. So do they. Okay. They castle. Now, is there an immediate threat on my position? No. Can we apply more pressure? We can with rook to d8. And is there a threat of taking the pawn after rook d8? Let's imagine a position where knight takes, bishop takes. If the bishop were to take, then we win the pawn. So let's start with rook to d8. We're putting more pressure on the pawn. This is what you do against isolated pawns. Now, they might try to pin me, but they can't because the queen's there. So they pin me this way, and what they're trying to do is play rook here, which is a good move. I think in this position, we should probably just castle and be safe. So let's do that. There's no need to rush the position. They have the weakness, and we just need to improve our position. And now bishop here could potentially be an idea, or even bishop here trying to remove a defender. Okay, so they're going rook here. I don't think that's the best move. I think they should be trying to go for this. Is there a threat of taking? No. So let's now move the bishop again, because the bishop it looks nice here, but if we can trade off potentially a defender of this, not at the moment, because after takes, we don't want that position. But I guess if we're prompted, we kind of have to now. So maybe that was a little bit inaccurate. Okay, instead they just develop. Now I think I can bring my rook up. We're going to try and bring the rook over this way. Quite potentially. And put more pressure. If we get rook here, we can take, and sacrifice the rook. Takes. And we should have a decent initiative. So of course, they can play bishop here. That's kind of what I'm expecting. But then we go bishop to f6, which attacks this. Instead they go here. Interesting move. Okay. Very interesting move. Is there a threat on this pawn? No. Can I go here? Takes. Bishop back. I don't quite love that position. I can also just go all the way over. Bishop has to go back. Or I can play rook here, or queen here. Let's play queen here. If they tempo us, what are we going to do? If they go back, I mean, we can just then offer a queen trade, I guess. Or we can just slide back here. Actually, yeah, if they go here, we can just go back to d7 with our queen. And we've replaced the blockade with a different piece, which is typically what we want to do. Now, if they try to push, we're going to take here. And then if they take here, we can actually just take, attacking the queen. Okay, instead my opponent jumps the knight into the position. However, by moving a piece, you have to ask yourself what opens up behind that. And now we can take the rook. And this is not a threat whatsoever. So let's go ahead and take the material. And now the only thing defending the knight is the bishop. So we're looking at moves like this now. And then if they were to take, we can obviously either take back in either manner and then try to capture the knight. So my opponent has blundered. And we're not doing anything fancy. We're just improving our pieces, and we're playing against the isolated pawn, which is exactly how you play in these positions. So this is the weakness. They're defending it twice. We're attacking it 3 times. However, we always have to be looking out for checks. And so if I take, rook takes, there is bishop check takes. And then they can't actually capture because there would be a back rank mate. So I believe I can capture here. So that's what we're going to do. Just noticing that this tactic does not work out in their favor because they can't actually capture the piece back due to back rank issues. And if they ever take here, we're happy to just take back. And if they take like this, I think we take with the knight. Okay, so they do go for this. Okay, we have to sacrifice, actually. Yeah. Okay, we're going to go ahead and pin the bishop to the queen. They give us a check. We have to block. So let's play e6. If we were to step onto a dark square, then they would have been able to give us a check and then take the queen. Okay, so they're attacking my queen. But I can take, and then take. So this doesn't work. Takes, if this, we can just take here. Queen takes, knight takes, and we're up a piece. So let's go ahead and capture. And if they take here, we can block the check. So queen takes, blocks. If they go for a check, we can just step up. And the rook's always protected by the knight. That's exactly what they go for. Let's just go back. Now the queen's under attack. The rook's under attack. You can take, but you don't really want that. Let's just step up. No worries. Of course, they can trade, but we're simply just up a piece. That's exactly what they do. Let's go here. And now they're pinning us. But we can go here. If they give us a check, we can just step up. That's no problem. And we're threatening a fork. And they missed the fork. So let's go ahead and give a check to pick up the queen. You always have to be looking for your checks. My opponent resigns. Good game. So we had a huge advantage. Yeah, knight takes, and we already have a better position. So we get this, castles, and we should already just take the pawn. And then knight takes, bishop takes. If they take back, I mean, it's just quite simple. What was I afraid of in this position? They can never pin because we can just take. But okay, we get this position. Kind of started to go wrong here, and then they blundered because, you know, we can just take the rook. And then they have this sequence here. We can take, and just keep going. And then they blundered the fork.